Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to kick off a new week with a new theme, and that theme is Now That's What I Call Unique. We're going to be exploring songs that you listen to them and you're just like, okay, yeah, I've never heard anything like this before. Yeah, I think this week's going to be full of some really weird stuff, but it's also subjective. I'm sure the first time somebody heard deathcore, it was probably pretty unique to them at that moment too. So some of these may not be as extravagant or as experimental as others, but I think we're going to be in store for some pretty interesting stuff all week. So let's dive into this. We're going to kick it off with some Boards of Canada from the Geogadi album. Geogadi? I don't. How do you pronounce that? We're looking at the track Gyroscope. Let's dive in. Bit of a brisk 4/4 here. Drone, panning percussion, very compressed. Some reverb on the percussion over here. That drone almost sounds sidechained to parts of the percussion. It seems to bubble and waver, get louder and get softer alongside specific hits. Oh, those are numbers. This is so unsettling. Wow. It's kind of a groove to it though, right? I think it's because of those accents in middle. We get that hit there and it kind of creates this pulse within itself. We also have that crunchy explosion there. And between the crunch and that snare accent, you kind of get a little bit of a syncopated groove going on. This is the whole song though, isn't it? There is something quasi-melodic in that drone though. It's not a static note. And the tape crackle to wrap it up. Alright, I think this is the wildest part. I'm not. I don't shy away from criticizing music. Y'all know that. One of the things that I call out, I feel most often aside from like lack of melody and dynamics. Those are really the two things that I hone in on more often than not. Anyways, though, one thing that I definitely bring up when I feel it's necessary is when a song feels more like an exercise, a neat idea that never quite evolved into, a full proper song. When it feels like it's still maybe a rough draft or maybe just a neat little concept. Maybe you wrote a cool riff and put a drum part to it and called it a day and slapped that on an album. It really feels like maybe we should have had more stuff in there. So, I've described songs in the past as feeling like exercises or ideas or drafts that needed a little more time in the oven. On the surface, I think this should should have be something that I talk about in a similar vein. It's one drum part, a drone, some production stuff that changes over time, and some counting. On paper, if you told me you were going to make that, I'd tell you, dude, it's underdeveloped. This is an intro to something. Where's it going? What's it doing? Where is this going to evolve into? And it kind of doesn't feel that way, though. I think that's what boggles my mind the most. The thing is, when it comes to if a song feels complete, one, that's subjective. Two, at least for me, it's a gut feeling. I might be able to explain what I would do to make it feel more complete, but it's something that just sits within me. I don't really have a way to quantify how to ensure a song feels like it's done, because it's art, right? You never really know when it's done, and in fact, anybody who's ever created anything artistically knows that you're never done. You just get to a point where you're finished adding things to it. And I think over the years, decades, centuries, we've kind of subconsciously created a feeling of what a finished song is based on what finished songs have always been, or how finished songs are in a specific era, or even more specifically, genre. A finished classical song is going to make a finished pop song feel incomplete, lacking. So, genre and intent are very important too. And that's sort of what makes it subjective as well. It changes with time, with style, with listener, with artist. It's always in flux. You never know when a song's over, and as an artist, you're never done. You're just finished working on it. But there's always something. I mean, you ask anybody who paints, who sculpts, who knits, or crochets, or whatever, makes music, anything creative, there's always something else you could have added. Always one more little detail you could have fixed or adjusted. The work's never done. You just decided to move on and release it as is. Nothing's ever 100% finished. So, like I said, it's hard to quantify. But there is just something in my gut when I listen to something, I'm like, oh, this feels underbaked, or this feels complete. And this song feels complete. I don't get it. Like I said, on paper, no, I would never have imagined that this would be the way I end this song, thinking, wow, I just went on a journey. Because there's no movement here. What's going on? And it's funny too, because this week is, that's what I call unique. We're looking at unique music, and it starts off and I'm like, okay, we have drone and percussion. What's so special about that? Where's it going to take us? And then it didn't do anything. Not new, anyways. It just stuck with that. That's not really unique. We've heard drone and percussion before. Why does this feel unique? I don't know that I can answer that. For me, I think it has to do with the journey, which is like the weirdest word to use for this, right? We didn't go anywhere. It's not like a slow burn, right? Or post metal where it sets up an atmosphere and you get to like feel it out and all the nuance of it. There's no I mean, there is nuance in here, but like not on the level of some of the best post rock out there. There's absolutely zero change on the paper. We have the pitch shifts on that drone, but the drums, what would actually be played, whether we're talking about a drum kit or like MIDI drum pad or whatever, that doesn't change from bar to bar. Everything in here that gets modified is on a production level. And I suppose those changes can take you on a journey, but it's just not typically what grabs me. So I'm kind of like, here's the thing, man. I don't know if it's noticeable yet. I'm not on my usual talking points. And it's because I have no idea how to approach this. This confuses me. I kind of even think I liked it. I don't know if it's something I would come back to often, but it was evocative enough that I think it's going to sit with me. And I'll be thinking in 5 years, this is just going to pop up in my head. Gyroscope by Boards Canada. Oh, yeah. That was that weird ambient drum thing. Oh, let me go check that out again. Refresh my memory. One of those things that just pops in your head and you're like, dang, I got to go check that out. I don't get it though. Because, it is missing melody. It's missing harmony, even to an extent. We can derive harmony out of the pitches that we have and kind of understand what kind of chord key we would be in. I don't think we'd be able to understand a chord progression on this unless we look at each note specifically as a root tone, and then maybe we could develop a chord progression, but I don't think that would be worthwhile anyways. We could find out what key we're in though. So there is a harmonic quality to it, possibly. I mean, well, even if it was chromatic, that's still harmonic. Anyways, there's no change to it. That's the other thing. I love dynamics and contrast, and this doesn't really have that either. On paper, again, this is just something I would not enjoy. So why did it reach out and touch me? Why am I affected by this? There's no lyrics to this song. Well, I mean it's counting kids 1 through 10, but there's no lyrics to it, right? And there's another one, right? There are words, but there's no lyrics. There's a journey, but there's no movement. It's static, but it changes a little bit. The description is underbaked, the execution is perfect. Maybe that's why I can't talk about this. It's just a collection of opposites. What is that phrase that I want? There's a word to describe that. When something houses two opposing characteristics. Well, I mean, oxymoron kind of works with that, but I don't think that's the word I was thinking of. It is all of one thing and yet none of it. In fact, it's the opposite of each of those. And that just. How do you talk about that? How do you talk about a dog that's actually a cat? You can't, it doesn't exist. This song shouldn't exist. Contradictions. That's the word. It's a song that is a series of contradictions. And it ends up working. I think that's the wild thing. The runtime certainly helps. I think if they had pushed this towards the 7 or 10 minute and really gone for a drone concept, I would have been lost. But at 3.5 minutes, that gives me time to think I understand what's going on, wonder about where it's going, discover it's not going anywhere, kind of get confused about what it's doing, and then it ends. I'm never really left with a moment to just sit with it. There's always a question about it, there's always intrigue. I don't know if it would necessarily grab me on multiple repeat listens. A second, I think I'd still be interested. A tenth, I don't know if it has the staying power for that, but on a first time, I'm kind of enamored with it. What is this? It's musical anomaly. As I was stating earlier, this is normally where I would go pick up lyrics, and we don't have any, so it's an instrumental. What I do here, I usually explain my journey through the song. What did it tell me as a musical narrative rather than a linguistic one or a poetic one? I don't know. Usually songs can speak to me when I understand what they're doing. It really helps to know the language in order to understand the story. When musicians use standard convention for composition, I can get a pretty good read on that. They're speaking a language I get. This is no. No, they're speaking a language I don't understand here. I can pick up on general ideas, the children chanting or counting with the heavy reverb feels like memory, but it's tough for me. It's like I can pick out some words and I can kind of feel out maybe what some sentences might mean, but none of the sentences, or at least my interpretation of them, make any sense together to form any sort of larger story here. And how does all of this relate to a gyroscope? A self-stabilizing spinning thing. I don't know how to describe a gyroscope. I think that's close enough for like non-scientific terms. Any of y'all can correct me on that. Give me something a bit more proper of a definition of a gyroscope. But yeah, the concept of a gyroscope, broken down to its basis, is self-stabilizing and rotating. I'm trying to figure out how any of that might relate back to the music. I mean, we do have the concept of horizontal movement. I think the kids' voices also pan around. The heavy reverb. I don't know, like it's all vague. I can kind of see some strings, but it's like one of those the detective boards. The cork board with all the pictures and then the red string tied around all the the thumbtacks. Uh, Except, I'm at that crazy stage where I have notes everywhere, papers all over the room. There's like 10 different colors of yarn or string on this corkboard, and I can't tell you anything about it. I just sound like I'm losing my mind. Just some crazy guy, a lot of string and paper and pen everywhere. And, yeah, I don't know, man. I'm going to wrap this one up. Boards of Canada, Gyroscope. Starting off the week strong here. You gave me something that I can't explain. Let's see how the rest of this week goes. Those are just my thoughts, though. What are yours? Do you have anything to add to what I said? Correct me on. Maybe you have, I was going to say a different interpretation, but maybe you have any interpretation. I didn't have anything here. Or perspective on this. Something to just maybe enlighten me and the rest of the community about what this might be about. Maybe there's an interview with this group and they can explain it themselves. Authorial intent would be welcome. Yeah. Anyways, put that stuff down in the comment section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. Takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, yeah, and a bunch of other stuff. Just tons of links there. Go ahead and check it out. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Greatly appreciate all three of those. Alright, that wraps it up for this one. We'll have a special selection next. Otherwise, I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.